Well, thanks to everyone. My name's Andrew Hay, and I wasn't sure if it was a good idea I introduced Brian to TED or not, but actually it was a great idea because he's really brought this event to life, and here we are. So I'm going to talk about how we've built some momentum towards this building, which is a real teaching building for us. And when you think about building momentum, I often think about a flywheel, being an engineer, and Colin's talked about the flywheel analogy and how you get everyone pushing in the same direction. You can really get that black, heavy object starting to spin. And as other people see that spinning, if they come in and push on it in the same direction, you can really start that momentum building. You can also think of it as a rope. You know, if we're all pulling on a rope in different directions, we don't go too far. But if we all pull on that rope in the same direction, my goodness, we can almost move mountains. And at the college, we started building momentum, and one of the first initiatives was this fabulous one of 3 steps forward. You know, as you want to build momentum, you got to take a first step. You have to start moving forward. And if we can get everybody moving in that same direction, then we can really do some neat things. So one of our environmental initiatives, our sustainability initiatives, is called 3 steps forward. Everybody doing what they can, taking 1 step at a time, and moving sustainability forward, which has resulted at the end of the day in a building like this one. So for us, that's pretty exciting. Where do we learn? Well, before we got to this building, we were thinking about where we're learning, and most of us think about, well, okay, learning, classroom, kind of like this, kind of like that, where you got someone up at the front with a piece of chalk and a chalkboard, and everybody's sitting there and, you know, falling asleep, and trying to learn as best we can. And, well, we can do some really good learning in rooms like this. We have lots of rooms like this. But there's better ways to learn if we can get outside of that room, if we can get to a real-world situation like this one. This is one of our classrooms. This is one of our Home for Learning projects, where the students are out in the community building a real house. And that's how they're learning. They're learning all their skills on site in a real environment and giving back to the community. Whether it's a house for low income or many of the other projects we've been involved in, they're learning in a real life situation. And in this situation, mistakes actually matter. If I get 9 out of 10 on a test, okay, I missed something. If the wall's built wrong and the building inspector says rebuild it, okay, that's a little more significant. Another one of our projects students were really excited about, and that's one thing to look at. Look at the faces of these students. They don't look too bored. They look pretty happy. They've just helped build a facility for a museum for the firefighting equipment in Kelowna. And they're giving back to the community in ways they hadn't imagined. Well, traditional lecture theater, students highly engaged, falling asleep again, or do we want to get outside of that? In our business programs and some of our other programs, they said, you know, how are other ways we can engage students? How do we get outside of the traditional classroom and get to a place where students are much more actively learning? Not passively learning, but actively learning. How do we get them involved beyond the classroom and outside of the classroom? And one of the ways was with one of the student organizations, which is the SIFE, or Students in Free Enterprise Group. And of course, they got heavily into green with their organization and sustainability, but they really got involved outside of the classroom. And the professors got involved with the students outside of the classroom. And this initiative's right across Canada. It's absolutely amazing for the amount of engagement and involvement that the students have. They just light it up. You can't stop students once they're into this, in a way. They're putting in so many hours, you have to tell them, like, slow down. You've got to breathe and eat too, you know, you've got to live and sleep. But these initiatives are really fabulous, and they take students to places they never imagined. This is one of our student teams in San Diego. They just won a big international competition. So, yep, bright smiley faces, bright eyes. They've been so engaged in their learning, and they brought this back into their classroom. The learning they did here, well, if you think about traditionally, right, I'm going to fly from Kelowna to San Diego, from A to B, average speed of 850 kilometers an hour in a jet. How long will it take me? Well, real life's a little bit different. And they learned just even getting to San Diego and raising the funds. Satu's one of the leaders of the students, and look at those bright eyes. She's so engaged in her learning because of the SIFE group, because of the outside of the classroom involvement, because of the way the whole institution's gotten involved. And she's led a whole initiative with the students around sustainable awards and raising the awareness. So now that comes right back into the classroom. And student group upon student group feed that energy. And they've built an incredible amount of momentum. One of the other projects they just finished was this Let's Can Hunger, and where basically the idea is you grab as many cans of food as you can by donation and such, and you measure your success by tonnage. And the group here, the Okanagan SIFE group, captured, if you will, so much tonnage of donations that if you put the rest of the country together, it still exceeded it, which is unbelievable. But the sustainability theme is now just showing through everywhere, and the learning is going on outside of the classroom. Here's another group of students that we bring in high school students to this competition. Those are a bunch of robots playing soccer. Well, actually, it's kids who've programmed the robots to play soccer, and they're so engaged in their learning. They're learning again outside of the classroom, in evenings, on weekends, with mentors from all over. Here's another classroom. Students are cleaning up the creek. All sorts of garbage in the creek, and the students got out there with some leadership from some individuals at the college, and they started cleaning it up. Why not? It's right there, right under our noses, if you will, in more than one way. And to clean it up was a really good piece for us. And it's amazing what they were able to achieve through that. And you think, okay, well, I took out a few things out of the creek. Well, 100 bags of garbage came out of that creek, and now there's animals and wildlife coming back into the creek. It's a big part of the campus, even though it's off to the edge, and it's pretty exciting. Students are getting involved in their learning outside of the classroom in ways that we're not even organizing anymore. How good is that? Well, how about in culinary arts? You know, students are cooking in the cafeteria, and we start talking about, 100-mile diet and sustainable cooking and better practices and healthy foods. And the building you're in here won't have any deep fat food, by the way. This is a healthy building with healthy food. And, students got involved and started thinking, well, what other ways can we have impact? We're here, we're talking about food and seeing all those nice styrofoam clamshells going out and isn't that nice stuff, ending up in the landfill. And they said, well, maybe we should do something a little bit different with all of that. Let's get socially responsible. Sustainability is not just about energy. It's about a lot of different things. Let's be socially responsible. Let's get rid of the styrofoam. Okay, well, we don't have styrofoam anymore. We've got these molded containers that are biodegradable. Well, that's good. The students are going, well, how about even something like certified organic coffee? And what other ways can we be sustainable? What about our plastic forks? Can we use the wood ones? And we started listening to the voices of the students. What do you have to say? What's important to you? What do you want us to do? I said, well, more parking. So wait a minute. Maybe that's not so good. But that's the reality, right? Parking is important to students, but there's other things too. The sustainability theme was coming through loud and clear to us as we listened to our students. And we let them write all over these boards and tell us their ideas and so on. We started to dream about a new building. Said, how about a building that, is the classrooms are different. Not different in their physical form, but different in how we use them. A building where you can actually feel the energy and see how it flows, see the light coming in, see how it works and be part of that. And we dreamed up this building and thought about, where are we going to learn in this building? How are we going to do that? What's going to be important to us? How are students going to interact? How are our faculty going to interact? Our staff, our community, you? How are you going to interact with this building? And, people in this building were thinking, this is a fantastic building. But they won't just be occupants of the building. They're going to be inhabitants of the building, which is a term some of my friends at UBC have used, and I love it. Inhabitants. We're actually part of the building. When you're in this building, you have to be an active participant to make this building work and make it sustainable. Now, how cool is that? You just don't come in there and sit there. There's things you have to do. And whether it's looking at the green roof and thinking about how we're going to work with that, or the solar photovoltaic, or any of the elements of the building, it's all exposed. We can use it as a learning tool and a teaching tool as we develop our curriculum. Our trade students can be involved with this, our technology students, our art students, any student, our staff can all have an active role in this building. That's pretty exciting. I'll give you an example. Robert just talked about some of the ventilation systems. Well, there's this little green light, red light system on in every classroom. Light goes green, it means open the windows. Doesn't mean sit there and go, oh, that's a nice green light, wonder what it means. It means walk over, open the window, let the fresh air come in. Light turns red. We don't want so much ventilation right now. Get up, close the window. We've actually created a human-activated ventilation system. A great experiment, right? I'm sure all our psychologist students are going to love this. But there's all sorts of cool things to do with this building. All the systems are exposed. You can see what the flow rates are through the radiant heating system and cooling systems. You can see what the energy readouts are, classroom by classroom, lab by lab, the entire facility, day over day. Anywhere in the world, log on to our site, see what the energy readout is. Today, yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, how is it doing? How are we making this work? Becomes a big teaching tool. So this building, in and of itself, is a teaching tool. The classrooms are a little bit different. We can get students up out on the roof and start understanding how the solar systems work. We can add new panels in, test them out, trial them. The architects came up with this great name and said, you know what, your roof's actually, we're going to call that the Petri dish. I said, okay, what kind of things are going to grow up there? No, it's okay, Petri dish. It's an area where you can experiment, try different things, but interface with the building. If you're putting up a new energy system, capture the energy, put it into the building, see how it really works. Real life situations coming into the building itself. And so the building itself, in our minds, is a living classroom. It will morph, it will change over time. If I walk into this building 20 years from now, and I look around and say, wow, that, 2010 technology, not bad for then we failed. But if I walk in and say, wow, this is still, everything's changing and adapting, and the students came up with new ideas, and the faculty have implemented new programs, and this is still at the edge of sustainability, then we succeeded. Because that's what this building's all about. It's about change, as Robert talked about, the agent of change. It's about new ideas, constant renewal. A building that's sustainable now and into the future, and we're building that momentum. So this building, that flywheel now is turning, and we've got lots of people walking in that same direction. It's not just one step, it's been many steps to get here, and there's many more steps to come. So we're all just so thrilled about the way this has come together and about that momentum that's been built at the college. All those little steps, each one of themselves, maybe not that much, but when you put them all together, you really had impact. So I'm pretty excited about what the future's going to look like for this building. And I want to come in here in 20 years, and hope you do too, and enjoy what this building has to offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, thanks.
What do you got?